They say when you love your work, the distinction between the weekday and the weekend blurs. But when the office is so pretty, that line blurs even further. So let's get chatting with the management of Nestle. Suresh Narayanan joins us on The Weekender today. But I started with a person loving their job so much, showing their passion towards their job, comes from the age-old saint Kabir himself, who I gather you're a big fan of and you follow him a lot.
One of the Dohas that Kabir had used in order to explore leadership and to explore the world, he said, "Jin dhoondha tin paiya, gehre pani paiti." Jin dhoondha, jo खोजेगा वही पाएगा, गहरे पानी पैठी, which is inside the deep in the water he'll find the treasure. मैं बूढ़ी डूबन डरी, me an old person डूबने के घबराहट से डरी, रही किनारे बैठी. So I think all our lives are the lives of not only cherishing what we have but also discovering new things. For me, Nestle has been a very, very inspiring journey. Every morning I get up, Mangalam, I am energized by the thought that I am going to be meeting a lot of young, energetic, driven people, right. Carrying forward not only the cause of the company, but also carrying forward their lives. As you know, my role is more of an orchestra conductor rather than the musician himself. But that is the joy. The joy of leadership is to be able to rediscover yourself in the actions of others.
You said Jin Dhunda Tin Paiya. What are you searching for right now from a company standpoint?
From the company standpoint, I'm looking at new pastures and new avenues for growth. I mean, we have been a successful company over 100 years in this country. We have some of the most iconic brands that are there with us. And yet there is even more. I mean, the inflection point of India has arrived. Today, aspirations need to be met with availability. And I think the Indian consumer, despite all the talk of global recession and various other economic pressures because of the war and other things, I think India is still a buzzing place.
Yeah. Indian
consumers are still willing to try new things, but try basis the trust that they have in brands. And I think Nestle is truly blessed to have brands that have been trusted over decades.
And that trust, periodically being tested as well and coming out with flying colors.
I think ultimately, as I keep telling my team, we are on a perpetual roller coaster. There was a time when we were on a steady state conveyor belt. The conveyor belt has now given way to a roller coaster. The principles will be still the same. The ability to anticipate and be agile.
Could you give me some example of how agile and flexible Nestle has become since the time you took over?
The corpus of the portfolio that Nestle has globally is about 2,000 or more brands. But the presence in India itself of brands was a lot more limited in terms of presence, in terms of innovation, in terms of presentation to consumers. One of the things that came out of our learnings out of our crisis that we faced some years ago, one of the things we question ourselves is our pace of innovation.
Right.
And I'm happy to say that today, using the same processes, because one thing is to jettison everything and say, I'm not going to care for any of the processes, any of the safety nets that the company works on, and just look at launching products without any consumer meaning or insight. That's not the Nestle way. Nestle goes through a deliberate process. We go through a deliberate process, except that today we don't have two things. One, we don't have a fear of failure, and secondly, speed of response. If something is 60-70% ready to go, then go.
Right.
Don't wait for perfection to happen. And today, post the crisis, we have launched almost 123 new products. Our pace of innovation, Mangalam, is 3 to 4 times faster than it was 10 years ago. So and it contributes about 5 to 6% of our sales. So I see this, and it also spawns other things. Our innovation in products has led to innovation in process. We have today the analytics and digital project called Midas in the company, which incidentally in the last annual general meeting of the company, the global CEO announced is being rolled out globally now, the Midas that came out of India.
Yes. What does all of this boil down to? I mean, I'm just looking at, the most important parameter in an FMCG company, according to me, would be the sales of a company. Sales led by volume, sales led by premiumization, sales led by some price hikes, if at all. What's the aspiration for Nestle going from here? I mean, are you looking at mid-teens sales growth? Are you looking at double-digit volume growth? How do you define that aspiration?
Look, I think one of the simple models, Mangalam, that we set forth 8 years ago is what we call the grow to win model.
Okay.
Grow to win simply means penetration-led volume growth. Even an evolved category has got an annual penetration of 35-40%, right? And in some categories it goes up to 80%. But if you were to look at it on a monthly basis, the penetration levels falls quite significantly to almost half of that. Which means what? That people need to buy more of the category, more frequently into the category, and more of the category.
What was counterintuitive then was, why is it then you had to phase out the low unit packs or leave important price points in some of your star products? Case in point, something like Maggi.
Look, I think one of the things, and that is more, two things are happening in this country.
Yeah.
One is what we call the popularly positioned price products. It's still about a third of our portfolio.
Okay.
So it's not that's not an important part of the portfolio. It's still a third of the portfolio and growing very well, and in fact becoming the driver, the front end of the charge into the urban markets. The other thing which is happening is there is premiumization taking place. So we are operating in both the vectors. Now, last year was an unprecedented inflation for us. The average inflation that we had to combat on an annualized basis was anywhere between 20 to 22%. Now, obviously, this meant that some of it we could find the avenues for in terms of what we call the shark savings, which is buying smarter, buying longer, and being more efficient in your recipes. And the second part was really to look at other costs that we were able to mitigate as an organization, and finally look at pricing.
Okay.
And in looking at pricing, there were some parts of the portfolio that needed to be touched. But we touched those parts of the portfolio where we knew that we also have an upgradation of the portfolio strategy that is there in place. Maggi was a case in point, that there was an upgradation strategy there. It is in motion now, so I would not say that the journey has ended.
Okay.
But in order to mitigate some of the pain points of moving out of price points, some of the things, Mangalam, I think a crisis brings is the ability to think outside the box. And I think that is prepares us well for times where we might face this in the future, but yet we are capable of taking it head on because of the capabilities that we have built.
That reminds me of another Kabir Doha, which says, "Dukh mein sumiran sab kare, sukh mein kare na koi. Jo sukh mein kare to dukh kahe ko hoy."
Absolutely.
Which is basically what you're doing. You're sticking to the process during the good times, so that when the bad times come, you will be pretty ready.
Absolutely.
Was there any impact of the price point movement on the market share?
Look, I think in some categories, and certainly in Maggi, and I referred to this earlier, there was an impact on volumes because obviously the price point that we moved out was quite sharp. But I'm happy to say that I think we have stabilized and now we are building back. On average, if you look at the company's performance in the last 6 to 7 years, we have been averaging a double digit. So about 10-11% on average growth, consisting of a price impact of about 3% and volume of about 7 to 8%.
Right.
We have maintained the charter of the growth engine of the company strong and secular for all these years. Last year we grew at 14%, but the volume delivery was lower than that. That has now again started to recover back. In the last quarter, our results had about a 5% volume growth, about 2.5 mix, which I count it as a positive sign that there is a uptrading that is happening. So about 7.5%, and the balance 14% was the price impact. As we go forward, we are expecting that the volume led growth will strengthen over a period of time, provided of course that the inflation, which looks to be as of now a little bit more tempered as compared to what it was. If this continues, then I think we'll be back into the journey of penetration led volume growth, which is the mantra that we will use as a company.
So, with all the building blocks that you're putting in place, with the capex, with the rurbn, with the digital tools that you're building, is there a case for volumes to structurally go higher into double digits with some mid-single digit sort of price growth? You've been averaging around 11-12% over the last 7 years. Can this grow to 15%?
I certainly see this. I think the pace of premiumization and the acceleration in some categories will definitely give us that opportunity. There are also new categories. I mean, for example, I'm very excited about our entries into breakfast cereals, into pet care, and into health sciences. Health sciences for me is a very nascent, but yet a very promising category. We operate in about 7 categories there. This would be better value, not necessarily great volume because they'll be relatively small, but better value products, so that the mix between volume and value will be something that we'll be able to accelerate even further as we go forward.
5,000 crore capex, historical asset turns would suggest it could double your business from current levels. Is that what your idea is? I mean, this capex, how do you look at it? How is it you looking at it from a sales CAGR standpoint of 10 to 15% over the next few years? Do you look at it as suboptimal utilization until your distribution ramps up and then you go full blown? How exactly do you look at it?
Look, I think the whole the philosophy of the organization is to secure the growth engine. I believe, Mangalam, having been in the trenches for a long time, growth can be a panacea for many of the detractors that you come across the way. So securing the growth engine is clearly the most important task ahead of me and my team. And there, penetration-led volume growth is a key lever that we will be using. And I think as a consequence of this, the capexes that we have planned, about 2,600 crores in the last couple of years and about 5,000 crores going forward for the next 3 years, are meant to create capacities that is ahead of demand. Now, we can't be waiting for asset utilizations of 100% and then say, now I'm going to build a factory. Now, a couple of weeks back, I was in Varanasi and driving down to Gazipur. In the old days, it used to be a dirt track. Today, there is a 6-lane highway. I was talking to one of our distributors. He said, sir, distribution has become so much easier. Now, tell me, Mangalam, distribution becoming easier makes products more accessible. It generates employment. There's a retailer out there, consumers out there. The brand reach is improving. I go to a 2,000 population village and I asked we have got a Swabhiman program, a rural village entrepreneur, women entrepreneur program. And I asked this lady, I said, which brand amongst the ones that you got here has got the maximum love and traction? And she said, KitKat. Now, I could never have imagined 5 years ago or 10 years ago that KitKat will be a brand of choice in a 2,000 population village. And as I keep telling my team, the time for a Nestle has come. Har aadmi ka waqt aata hai. Kabir said beautifully, he said, "Dheere dheere se mana, dheere sab kuch hoy, mali sinche 100 ghada, ritu aaye phal hoy." The gardener takes 100 buckets of water and puts it on the plant, on the seed. But ritu aaye, only when the spring happens will the fruit happen.
So you are hoping that the weather is favorable for India's growth. On this village distribution itself, rural accounted for what, 20-25% of your sales, much lower than everyone else. Do you have an aspiration of increasing that? And distribution, with you increasing your reach, How does that change your product strategy? Or does your product strategy remain and the distribution just feeds your current strategy?
Look, I think, I must say, Mangalam, that looking at the rural-urban kind of, there is no ambition that I want to get my rural sales to 50% or 60%.
Yes.
For me, the penetration game is as much alive in mega cities and metros as it is in tier 2, tier 6 cities.
Is there a number to
rural.
that? I mean, say for instance, can you say that, okay, this penetration-led gain would get me an additional 10% of sales every year or additional 5%? How does one look at it like
Look,
that?
I think the growth vector is definitely faster in the smaller towns because of the lower base.
Yes.
We are able to, using the power of analytics and digital, to really geo-target even PPP products within urban agglomerates. Earlier, we did not have that capability to be able to digitally sharp focus and geo-target the kind of launches and products and portfolio that we were looking at. Today, we are able to do it. Along with that, there is a huge amount of activation as well. One of the things that we are doing in small towns and in rural India is participating. I think last year we had about 25,000 hearts, which is the village fairs, where Nestle participated.
Yes.
That's a fantastic way to get both visibility and to get trials. I think the only mantra that I've given my team is growth, growth, growth.